Hey, welcome to ACTRA Spotlight. I'm David Gale.
And I'm Jean Yoon. And today we have the Podemski sisters, an incredible trio of artists who've made a huge impact in First Nations performance, not just in film and television, but also in music and theater.
Yeah, they do it and they also give it back. And I call this episode of Matzah Balls and Mentorship. And you'll see why.
So here we go. So here we are with the incredible Podemski sisters. Jennifer Podemski. Hello.
Hello.
Tamara Podemski.
Hello.
And Sarah Podemski.
Hello.
And David Podemski. No.
Three powerhouse ladies, all actresses, singers, musicians, producers, writers. That you got the whole team here.
Yeah, holy cow.
So this is a really exciting event for us, just to have all three of you in the room together, because we're really looking forward to talking about being creators, being performers, but also being sisters and how it's worked for the three of you. So I'm just wondering, I think maybe the best way to start, Jennifer, as the oldest, if you could just give us a quick sort of self-introduction in terms, because you started in the early 90s in film and TV. Did you also start do theater back then?
Yes. I guess I was my first on camera thing was actually in grade 6. I was doing these little pieces for CBC at the time, and I was like going to movies and then reviewing them and going into studio at CBC and giving my movie review. That was like my first paid kind of TV gig. And then I was, mostly training as a dancer at the time, and I did a lot of theater at school, and I did a lot of community theater. My first theater performance was at Addis Israel, actually.
Oh, nice.
In Toronto at Pattison Wilson. I was brought into the theater group by a couple of friends, and I was a theater kid.
Amazing. And then, so were you all doing theater? Tamara, were you doing theater back then? And were the three of you all like doing dance and singing and theater? And
Yeah, I think when I was little, dance. Like, I think for all of us, dance was really our entry point, and musical theater was I was a junkie for musical theater.
Yeah.
But no, I had a hard time getting into plays at school. And so I'm making up for it now. So I feel like I got into that like extracurricular, like the way that children do all that extracurricular stuff like these days. I didn't get to do that. So it was really through, we went to a performing arts school. So it was in the training that I got to have my play. But no, it was like, I guess, 15 years old, like professionally just starting work then.
Was it watching Jennifer? Was she an influence on you?
I think we played and did make believe a lot together, like in our home. Jen's no, because I think I'm a middle sister, and so I think at that age I wouldn't ever admit like she was my inspiration. Like I would think that I'm doing my own thing. Now as an adult, I respect that. Yes, I was probably following in her footsteps, but no, at like age, no, me version 8, not like at 8 or 9 years old, I was probably the one who thought that they were blazing
the trails.
And Sarah, you started at 12, right?
Well, it was crazy because we went to Claude Watson. So I started dancing when I was 6, and I think, like Tamara said, we all kind of started with dance. And then in grade 4, I went to Claude Watson.
Yeah.
And then when I was 11, Tamara got a role on this German series called Blue Hawk, which is
Blauvogel.
Based on this really popular children's book about this German boy who falls in love with this native, Indian princess.
Yeah.
And when she got the role, they were like, we're looking for someone who's 5 years younger than you, because the story spans 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think that your agent at the time, Fran Messenger.
So Sarah, I had to bring to my audition because it was after school. So I brought her to my callback, and they saw the 5-year-old version of me younger, and then she booked the job.
Sorry, no, the 12-year-old version. You were
the 5-year-old younger than
Yes,
me, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so then that was my way in. And then I kind of continued with that, and it just was something that I fell into. I don't know if I ever thought that that's what I wanted to do.
Your mother must have been driving like all over the
Yeah.
place to pick you guys up and take you to classes and take you to auditions.
Oh, here we
and-
go.
Surprisingly, we were raised by our father. So it was him who was like a single father, driving us everywhere. I remember he would drop us off and like sleep in the car. Like during my dance class, because he was just like he was working and like burning the candle at both ends, and it's insane the amount of hours and time that he put into just like, taking us everywhere we needed to go.
And Jennifer, did he start with you at dance school? Like, were you the first one? And
I was a lot more independent. I kind of was. I was taking the bus to dance class myself. So I was, I think my dad was focused on, Sarah, because Sarah was really young at the time. And by the time I was 12, 13, I was already like well on my way to being independent. I remember going down to this company called Lauren Goldhammer Studio at college in Bathurst and taking the bus there after school myself and being like, it's really scary downtown. I don't know why my dad lets me come down here. But yeah, my dad had, by the time I was 12, he had 3 girls to look after. So I think he really did put a lot of his focus on the younger ones that really needed that kind of support. I was a little bit more on my own. And then by the time I could drive, I was gone.
and was there an expectation that you would play a motherish role in the family?
I don't know that there was an expectation, really. It just sort of fell naturally. Like, I had to take care of my sisters all the time. So I think that's just what you do in a family. Mostly, I guess I was always taking care of Tamara. I mean, it was always the two of us, right, Tamara?
Yeah.
Like, when we were even younger, like we always walked home together, from when we were in school together, and I was in grade 3 and she was in, I don't even know, kindergarten, daycare.
I mean, there's a big distinction between when you were little kids and you do everything together. I'd say the big shift happened when Jen became a teenager, and it's just not cool to talk to your younger sibling. So there was like all the childhood memories, which are where I feel like we fell in love with performing. That's all my memories are us together doing that, and with Sarah, and then Jen and I, just taking that further and doing the shows, and then really like imagining and dreaming. Like, Jen and I did a lot of the dreaming together because we were old enough to imagine like what we want to do in the world. And we were able to like go out and see more things. We had a grandmother that was my dad's father. My dad's mother, who was like really passionate about taking us to shows. So we were very lucky that we knew that there was this world, that there were professional performers. She had a friend that was an actress on television, and Jen was like, she just couldn't stop asking, like, what is that? What do you mean? Like, she does commercials and so we were introduced very early on that this was a livelihood, that this was like people,
Possibility.
that it was a possibility.
Do you remember who this actress was?
Jen?
Oh, yeah. My grandmother's very good friend was Linda Marshak. Her daughter was Judy Marshak, who is still she's a theater actor. And she was in a show way back when I was in grade 3. I think it was called Pal Joey. And my grandmother took me to see it. And I was like so starstruck when I saw the show, and she was singing and dancing. And then she invited her over to talk to me about like how you can become a professional actress. And I really think that, she sort of planted those seeds that this was actually possible. And then I saw Judy on an Alka-Seltzer commercial.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
it was like, I was just so blown away by all the possibility and potential.
But I think that's a real turning point. Like, it didn't matter. Yes, we were at a performing arts school. Yes, we had a kind of disruptive childhood that forced us to really bond together, and we turned to the arts to help us process these emotions. But if that connection wasn't made of like, there is this other thing, like it's an actual world that you could do this for real, it doesn't matter what you're doing recreationally. You need to be able to link it to something else.
It's not just a hobby.
Exactly. And so Judy Marshak was that for Jen. I went, my grandmother took me to see for my 12th, my 11th birthday, Les Miserables, which was at Royal Alex, like whatever, in the 80s.
Show. Huge.
And Cosette went to my school. And I bumped into her in the bathroom. And I was like, oh my, I could not believe you're like a normal, you're in Toronto. Like, it's, you know, it's like when, that she lived in Toronto.
No, who was it?
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember? Okay,
and a classmate. It doesn't matter.
She wasn't in my grade. She was a year younger than me. But
Yeah.
I noticed her. Like I'd never seen her in school, and then I noticed her because I saw her on the stage,
and it made it seem possible.
And it was like all the gaps, like the things that seems in like another world, all the gaps starts to close, and you see like, oh my gosh, it's actually in.
Also at our school at Claude Watson, like we went to school with Sarah Polly, we went to school with Arissa Cox. Like there were kids like acting. Like we would go to school and someone would be out for 2 weeks because they were filming something.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I remember Mark Zador, who was someone I went to school with, he was Gavroche.
Oh, right. Yes.
Oh, wow.
So it's weird, too, to go to a school where, like, there's all these professional children performers.
Yeah.
And it did seem like it was totally doable.
Does Claude Watson then feed into Earl Haig? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
So, like,
sense.
the world just started to go, just to shrink a little bit. And then...
And the possibilities expanded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's what access is, an opportunity.
Yeah. And the other thing I find really interesting is that all three of you were launching into careers at whatever age you were at a time when there was this sudden explosion of First Nations theater, film, and just a creation. And all of you are hugely important pioneers as performers in terms of the stories that you've taken part in, the music that you've created, the movies that you've written and produced, Jennifer. It's really amazing. And so looking from the outside at the three of you, you're a incredible powerhouse team. It's like a conglomerate, the Podemski sisters.
No pressure.
I'm so excited. But because I also feel like all of you are kind of mid-career, I'm really curious to know what you're most proud of in terms of your own work, and then eventually we'll get to what your dream project is at some point down the line. But those are all my questions. Going
Yeah. But one at a time.
I'm gonna start off just because I think that for me, I fell into this in a way, and I didn't realize the responsibility I had or the privilege that I had to be part of some of the projects in my early 20s, and one of the first television jobs I got was a show that Jenny produced, was called Mocassin Flats, which was just like, when I think back at it, it was so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And what she created, her and Laura Milliken, was just this access to a community that nobody knew about. And was so underrepresented and so underserved. Yeah. And that was able to spark something inside of me which understood, even at a young age, there's a responsibility here as an Indigenous performer and storyteller that you can't, not that you can't just be an actor, but I felt the weight of, the kinds of stories that we're involved in and telling. You are responsible to something bigger than yourself. And I think that was kind of my way in, and it now has just grown. It's just continued to grow. And as I start to get into producing and writing, it was that little thing that was created that made me understand that there's such importance to the work that we do. Yeah. And we can't be
complacent?
Yeah. Yeah. And it can't exist separately. It all exists in the same vacuum.
Jennifer, the Res must have been really groundbreaking in its day, and must have really informed your career and your own writing. What was that like?
Yeah, the Res was such an important launching pad, I think, in so many ways. It was where I realized that there weren't enough Indigenous people telling stories. I think on that show we had Gil Cardinal direct one episode. And, you know, I became very aware of the disconnect at the same time that I was really learning and understanding how to craft a TV show. You know, being the lead in that show gave me such a huge opportunity to watch very closely how they made that show. And I think Brian Dennis is still to this day, you know, one of my great mentors, because he really guided me through a lot as an actor. But then when I became a producer, he was someone who I went to all the time to say, how do I recreate what we did on the res, like with that same sort of feeling of family and purpose, but make it, you know, strictly really for the Indigenous narrative. And he supported me in that. So it was a great time of my life that fed into, you know, my purpose, I suppose. I mean, everything, if you look back, sort of leads you to where you are. So I guess in many ways it was just one of many things, but it was formative for sure.
And the 90s. This is in the 90s.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, that's the 90s.
Yeah.
Can't remember what year.
But, you know, back then
It
it
was like 95.
95.
Yeah.
95?
It was really good to be Native.
Right. It was good
For
to
a
be
few
Native.
years.
On
And
television.
really, when that was on the air, it changed. How did it change things?
Well, no, it started with Dance Me Outside in 94, and then The Res, and then North of 60.
North of 60,
and then it
yeah.
was just like, it just was nonstop. There was about, I don't know,
Pocahontas.
eight
Disney did
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas.
Irene Bedard got to play Pocahontas.
And down in the States, there was another one. What was that?
Smoke Signals.
Oh, Smoke
Sig-
Signals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
There was something else, though, too, in the States. I can't remember. It was just...
But there was
like
there was
Squanto with Adam Beach. Like there was a whole bunch of those kind of period.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a really good time. I think there was
Those
probably,
results.
if you look at actor registration at that time, there was probably the biggest surge of Indigenous actors getting their cards. I would bet. What do you think, Jen? That was the time that we all kind of came out?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was
Came out as
definitely,
Indigenous.
you know, there was definitely an influx,
Yeah.
I'm sure, in Toronto for sure,
In Toronto,
and
for
probably
sure.
Vancouver, but you know, where they weren't getting their cards was at the DGC and the WGC and
Yeah.
you know, the Producers Association. So I think that you know, took many years to build, and I think it's, you know, in many ways all of the opportunities that were built for Indigenous actors were amazing, but also fueled so many of us to take control of those narratives. So you know, you will see a lot of the people that you saw on TV back in the 90s, you know, ended up becoming writer, producer, directors themselves, because of the same reason, you know, we're all doing it, is because in order to shape those narratives in an authentic way, they have to come from the community itself.
Yeah.
Did you find that was a harder thing to do, to get the producer credit and the director credit, than it was to get a performer's credit on back then?
Well, it just, there weren't any. Like, I had worked up until, you know, 1999 when I opened my first production company. I had only ever worked as an Indigenous so-called actor on Indigenous content. I mean, I had done, you know, Riverdale, which was a non-Indigenous character, which was pretty amazing, which happened in 1999.
I remember that show.
And I played a couple of other characters here and there, but 99% of the work of the roles that I portrayed were Indigenous characters in Indigenous stories. And I had never, except once with Kent Monkman, who wrote and directed Blood River, I had never worked with an Indigenous writer, director, or producer up until like I started my own company.
Now, you said you were raised by your father, and I know that was Israeli. Mm-hmm. How did that influence how did that affect your lives, having an Israeli dad? and being Indigenous as well. It's a combo.
Growing up, we had Shabbat dinner every Friday, which is when we would put on our best work, our plays and our dance pieces.
My family as well.
So I think culturally, we definitely were. I feel for me, I was very involved in the Jewish community growing up. I went to summer camp with Hashomer Hatzair, which was the organization that my grandfather was part of.
Socialist.
Yes,
most left.
Which is, where our grandfather went as a boy, like all through his life, throughout the Holocaust, when he came back to Canada, when they were in Israel. My dad went there as a kid. So there was a serious legacy for us. In that part of our culture that we knew was really important, that I feel I was very affected by. I lived in Israel for a year with my dad, and I lived on a kibbutz. So I feel like I was really shaped by that community and that culture.
Yeah, and it might have not been the thing that was informing our work as artists, but it has shaped us as human beings, and to be second generation Holocaust survivors on one side, residential school survivors on the other, and having a Saba, having a grandfather who took that time to teach us his story, his family's story, to take us all back to Poland with him, to tour the camps with him, to
did the March of the
show
Living?
us his. We didn't do March of the Living. No, we got a personal tour from our grandfather who took us to Auschwitz and showed us the bunk, the house that he stayed in. And
oh my God!
Oh yeah, it was.
My God.
This is a man who, taught us and embedded in us those values, that human fight and spirit that got him through that time. So it's very clear to us, like, if there's no laziness, there's no taking for granted that we're here. And so you have that from him that just puts a fire under your ass to make the best of living in a free world that has, that we have opportunities available to us. And then on the other side of residential school survivors for both our my mother's parents, that also just it's impossible to know where you come from, and know how hard, the people before you fought and struggled to survive and thrive. It's impossible to live in a passive or purposeless way.
Yeah. There's too much coming at you.
So I wouldn't say, sure, that comes into our work as artists, but what it's done more is made us the human beings that we are, the community workers that we are, the activists that we are, the
appreciation for life.
Yeah. I just want to say something, because I do remember we were part of this. I mean, first of all, my mom took us to protests when we were so young. Yeah. Like, that was very much a part of our world. And then on the other side, with Hashomer, when we would get together during the year, we would write letters, I remember, about no MSG in food, and how to treat the environment and recycling and all these things. So we actually came from two very activist communities that I really think influenced us to be the kinds of women that we are, that we have to continue that activism, whether it's through work or through our personal life. But it is interesting that we were as young people, that was very much a part of how we were raised.
Yeah. My father took me to protests too, for pro-democracy protests, because he was really active in the at the time when I was a kid. Korea was under military dictatorship. My dad was organizing and fundraising and letter writing, and I remember getting on a bus and going all the way to Ottawa and standing outside he shaped me, my father.
And it gives you that fire.
Yeah. Well, it's also okay, this is our civic responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
My grandfather marched in the Winnipeg General Strike.
Wow.
And we fought it. I went to a Hebrew school all the way, graduated high school in Winnipeg, and we were fighting against abuse of Russian Jewry, trying to get them out in the 70s. Yeah, it does build a fire. Yeah. But I have a really important question. What is your comfort food?
I would say I know it's like totally stereotypical, but it's for me it's a Matzah Ball Soup.
Matzah Ball Soup, that's fine.
So,
That's
and I only
delicious.
say this because I'm going to LA in a couple of days, and all I'm waiting for is Greenblatt's Deli.
Okay, is it a big, hard
it's the
one?
big, fat, and it is. And when I first moved there and I was alone and I was homesick, every Friday night I did my own Shabbat little, and it wasn't, I didn't do the whole like ritual, but I had myself, my own booth, and my Matzah Ball Soup, and it made me feel like home no matter where I was.
It stays with you, a good matzo ball.
Oh yeah,
It really
yeah. The only
glows
problem
when
is
you-
if you know a good matzo ball, you can't have
Nah,
crap
bad one.
matzo
Yeah,
balls.
that's
I know,
true.
I know.
That's
And it
true.
ruins everything.
What's yours, Sarah?
I'd say a Matzah Ball Soup.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
And Jennifer?
Well, I didn't even hear the question.
What is your comfort food? That
Yeah.
that question launched tomorrow into a rhapsody on Matzah Ball Soup.
Mm-hmm.
So
Doritos?
does that qualify as a comfort food?
Does that qualify as,
As
a
a
food?
No, but it's a good one.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. My comfort food? Oh my goodness.
Can I answer for you? Can I answer for you?
Yeah.
A loaf, like an entire loaf of sourdough bread.
Mm.
Yes, yes. That is my comfort food.
Not a slice. The whole loaf.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, you know what? Okay, see, I have to tell you a bread story. Speaking as someone who can't eat gluten.
Okay, do it.
I could eat sourdough. So when I lived in Israel when I was 18, I worked at the bread factory on the kibbutz, and I would wait. There were two jobs. One was the actual braiding of the dough that would go into the oven. So you were braiding dough to become like challah.
Yeah.
And that was like a pretty boring job and monotonous. The other one was packaging the bread as it came out of the oven. So over like the course of a couple of weeks, I realized that the bread was so hot that if I brought a stick of butter, that I could just like rip the bread open, put the butter inside it, and then eat that whole piece, like loaf of bread with the melted butter inside, like a whole stick of butter.
Like a hot dog, but the stick of butter is the dog.
And an entire loaf of bread.
An entire loaf of
Oh
challah.
my God, that
That
sounds
sounds so good.
So
Yeah.
good.
Isn't that yummy?
Yeah, it sounds super yummy. Mine is rice porridge with, we make this rice porridge thing with there's range. I'll have it with barbecue duck and green onions and sesame oil, or sometimes just with the sesame oil and green onions and a bunch of salty things on the side. That's what I eat when I'm needing comfort.
What is that called?
Rice porridge. We call it juk. And in Chinese restaurant they call it congee, but no, I don't know where that word
Congee.
came from because
I love congee.
yeah, but I think it's actually the Chinese version they call it congee, but I think congee is actually a Portuguese word, and I don't know how it got attached to, because in Mandarin and in Cantonese it's zhou in Mandarin and juk in Cantonese, so I don't know why it's called congee. Is that
delicious.
weird?
When I take the train to Toronto and get to Toronto in time for breakfast,
Yeah.
I usually go to Cupford and Kim and get the congee for breakfast.
I'll make you congee.
That's
Next
my
time you
best
come
breakfast.
to Toronto, you come to my house and I'll make you congee.
You haven't made me
Make it-
congee.
It's a
I'll
date.
make it too for you too.
Congee date.
But favorite project for you, Tamara?
So I think I would probably say, or like, can I be the most impactful?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so most impactful was probably Ready or Not. And I say that because it was the one that I understood, like how far-reaching the work could be, because it was in like 120 countries in the world, and so everywhere I went, I had little girls coming up to me, younger little girls, like teenage girls, and it was like representing a time that is so awkward, which is that early teenagehood.
Yeah.
And I felt that Carla Slavinsky was she was such a gift for me, but I felt, oh my gosh, like this is, and I always felt it with the stuff with the res and Dance Me Outside, but something about Carla, I think it was probably also the writing of that show.
Yeah.
They captured a truth of that age that really helped young people.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I realized because it was a supporting, well, it was a series regular, but it was one of the more supporting roles. As an actor, I realized, I think I was guaranteed 2 episodes, but I was like, okay, you give it everything, and you find her, and you like just go crazy, and then 2 turned into 3, turned into 4, turned into 5, and then finally got to like episode 11, and they were like, the reason your character was written was because we wanted to talk about death, so we have to kill you. We were always planning to kill you, but now we actually really have to kill you because the season finale is next, and the show was over after this. It was the final season, and I understood of like work ethic and professionalism. If you show up with your 10 lines and you give it your everything, and you know that this person that you're going to embody is the most important story for you to tell, crazy things happen. And I think I learned that with Carla Slavinsky, that something that maybe didn't have that life to begin with. That's the magic that we bring to these people that are just on paper in that little 2-line breakdown, you know?
So if you bring it, they will kill you eventually.
No, but it was so nice. It was like, we were going to kill you in the beginning.
Right.
And now we're like,
we
10
kept you alive for so long.
Exactly. And I'm so sorry, but it's time.
Well, they killed the whole series. So
yes, exactly. I didn't take that part personally.
But then everybody cried.
Not to mention being her family and watching like her funeral on TV and like pictures of her on the coffin. That was pretty disturbing.
But it also did start, I think I died in many, many things. Like for whatever time I had,
you became the queen of death?
I had like a period of 10 years where I died in almost everything I did. And then I thought, well, I tried to interpret it in a good way. Like, maybe you have that face that makes people's heart break or something like that. Anyway, I've managed to stay alive, thankfully. But yeah, I'd say that was just the most. I learned so much on that show.
I've only died once, and I had to blow up a spaceship to do it. That was it. I was so excited because I was dying. I was like, oh my god! And
that's a big
plot point.
Yes,
it was a big plot point. I was really excited.
Yes,
I got to shoot a man once.
Yeah, that was
fun.
Yeah, but it's important to say you never saw me die.
Oh, okay.
Yes, which is almost more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In all those 10
In all
deaths?
those, yeah.
Wow.
I don't think you ever saw me die. No.
You just
like
find
crying when you see someone cry on stage. You don't want to cry, but if they almost cry, then you can cry.
Yeah. It's like the benefit of having other people talk about the thing that happened makes you hurt more. Yeah.
Okay, Sarah.
Oh.
It's going to be hard.
I think also with what Tamara said, I've had so many favorite projects, but definitely the most influential was the most recent show that I just did. I did 2 series of an Amazon show called Tin Star, and it was kind of like working at a level that I had never worked before. And
how so?
I mean, the cast was insane. I was working mostly with Tim Roth, and I got to work with Christina Hendricks, and just these really incredible actors that I just watched and learned so much from. But one of the biggest things that came out of that was that we were dealing with a lot of Indigenous content with non-Indigenous writers, and I really found my voice. I found my confidence for the first time. And I'm 36, so it was for having a career over 20 years or however long it was really the first time that I felt confident enough to speak up and to talk with the producers and the writers. And I felt like something just switched inside of me. Tim was an incredible influence on me and really supported me through a lot of things, which was really incredible. So it was also what you're talking about, that allyship. It was the first time that someone really stuck by me and supported me through a time where I felt, alone. Mm-hmm. And that's happened multiple times. Yeah. But it was the first time that I felt, you know what, I have to take responsibility for myself and my voice. Yeah. And it catapulted me into so many different things this last few years, developing, a TV show and features and writing and focusing on, producing. It catapulted me into a whole new thing where I just felt, you know what, I can use this confidence to continue building better narratives, better work environments for Indigenous people and more inclusivity for actors where they feel like they're in a safe environment. So I think that was just like,
That's huge. As an actor, going
Yeah.
to the producers and writing team and
Yeah.
saying, "Hey guys, this is a question."
yeah.
You know, it's really scary.
Oh, it's so scary.
I don't think that they have any idea how scary it is for actors to actually do that.
But you do it, Jean, on your show?
Yeah, it's scary.
I guess that's where you're getting that from.
And you know how hard everybody's working.
Yeah.
And you know that there's no ill intent. And so it also was learning how to communicate in a positive way with empathy and understanding and try and accomplish something through a place of love and know that, you know, nobody's trying to, you know, manipulate you.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And sometimes they're trying to manipulate you.
Yes.
Yeah, there is
knows about
that.
that.
There is that.
Dream
Wait.
projects? Jennifer, most impactful project for you?
I guess it comes down to like the acting projects and then the producing projects. So I guess if I'm looking at all of them and having to pick one, I would say the one project that I really loved the most and had the most impact on me was a movie called Bogus, which I never ended up actually being in. But I got to, it was my first open call audition, and it was auditioning for Franco Dragone of Cirque du Soleil, and it was a 2-day dance and clown audition, and were two things that up until that point I hadn't been able to really practice very much. So I got chosen to do it out of 1,000 people. 11 of us were chosen, and then we worked for 2 weeks with the genius of the Cirque du Soleil, Franco Dragone, and we rehearsed for 2 weeks. I got to play a Pierrot type of clown who swung from airplane wire and did air dancing and clowning, and I learned the real clown techniques from the real original clown people. And that was like one of the best experiences of my entire life. And then we shot the movie for 10 days. So it was like a whole month of work, and then none of us were in the movie.
You were in the credits. You were in the opening credits.
We were in the opening credits for like a flash, yeah.
How old were you when you did that?
20.
That's a really good question.
Wow.
24? 23.
Wow.
I've worked with a lot of clown people over the years. Not that kind of clown people. Just, you know.
Just clowns?
Clowns. Too many clowns. Send out the clowns.
If you would have ended up, if that would have been like your breakout clown role though, Jen, you may have gone in a different direction and been a professional clown.
Well, it's interesting because if you remember, right, was that Tamara?
Yeah.
Okay. Because right after that, I had a skiing accident, and I was sort of in recovery. I couldn't really dance anymore. They told me that I'm never going to really be able to dance to the full capacity anymore.
Right.
And during that time when I was healing, Franco Dragone called me and said, I want you to come and be a clown for the Cirque. Can you come to Montreal and show us what you can do? And I was like, I can't move. I'm in bed. I'm in traction. And then, I wasn't better for a year, so I lost that opportunity.
So you could have been a clown.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I am. In my heart and soul, that's really what I am.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Wow.
The sisters agree. This is such amazing stuff coming from you guys. Yeah. Tamara, I want to hear about Rent. Did you get good matzo balls in New York?
I couldn't eat matzo balls in New York.
What?
I know. Rent, well, because I was on a very strict diet and I was a very paranoid performer. Rent was obviously for a young musical theater junkie, it was like my dream come true. I saw Rent win the Tonys. I was 19 years old. I was doing the Res. I auditioned for it. It was the final season of the Res. I auditioned for it in Toronto. And they told me while we were shooting a scene, it was me and Daryl Dennis in a car, and the whole car was rigged up. And so they put the pager to the window, and for a half an hour I had to sit in there knowing that my world was about to change. And when I cried, I remember when I heard the message, people thought someone had died. I fell to the ground. It was like the gravel.
Very dramatic.
Very dramatic. But it was like I saw my first Broadway show when I was 12 years old. I saw a chorus line. I promised myself, like, that is what I want to do with my life. This was every dream I ever had. Like, I dream of winning an Oscar. There's some other dreams I have, but Broadway to me was the be-all, end-all, the best way to express one's self in the world, of like that hyper theatrical sing your guts out. And so I got to do that. I moved when I was, I guess I did the Canadian company, the Canadian original cast, which was the best cast of all the casts.
Pretty great. I saw it a number of times.
And the fact that most of us ended up on Broadway, they kind of hated us down there because it just was more Canadians, more people from the Canadian cast just kept on coming down until we were almost like made up half of the company down there. But we're really good up here. We're really hard workers. Yeah. And so I was in the Canadian company for about 6 months as an ensemble member. And then, just another one of those moments where it's a phone call that changes your life. And they say, we have an opening in Broadway. Can you move in 2 weeks? And again, screamed my guts out. My dad came downstairs. I was living at home at the time. And he was like, what the hell is going on? He was so scared. And I was bawling. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even speak. It was like, this is the next level of like your dreams coming true. And then it was amazing. I got there. And I was thrown on stage within 2 days. I had 2 days to follow the show and then went on stage. And then I understudied the lead, Maureen. And within another 2 days, I was understudying her. And I only got to understudy her once while I was in Toronto. And then they tell me, we sing it in a different key here, the original key, not the lower key that you sing in Canada. So that was a fun day. And then for 6 months, I basically worked my ass off understudying. And this was something very similar to the Carla Slavinsky thing. It was like, like understudies, we work so hard. And I felt like if I just continued to show what a hard worker I was and how much I love this and how happy I am to be here, that's going to pay off. And it didn't.
No, it didn't in that you didn't get the part of Maureen.
Maureen left. And I'd been on stage like 5 out of 8 shows a week as her understudy. And then they hired a new Maureen. You don't remember that? Sarah's like gasping like she doesn't. And I was heartbroken and I was like, no, but you keep that, you keep going. And then a couple months later, that Maureen wasn't able to sustain. It's really hard work, the 8 shows a week, singing in that kind of rock and roll way. And then they gave me the role. So it was like, it was like everything was just like this stretched out, make you want it more. How bad do you want to fight for this? And then when I got it, it was like my whole body was just said, we've fought, like we've gotten you this far, we need a break. And then my voice went out and I was on the verge of a vocal hemorrhage and I had to take off a couple of months. And it was a very scary time. And then I had a woman from Nova Scotia. She used to be a nun who was working with singers to help them find their voice again because of fear or trauma. And she came, she had 2 days with me, and we didn't do any singing. We just did like body breath work. And I went back to the show, and I didn't call out sick for the last 8 months of my run.
Amazing.
And it was amazing. But what it did do was just the pressure there, and you know that there's always somebody ready to take your role. Mm-hmm. The intensity of New York. I was still like 20 years old. I think I was there from like 19 to 21.
You were a baby.
And it just got to a point. Jen came. Jen finished Riverdale. She came to sleep on my couch there and try to make it as an actress. It was just the pressure really got to me. I didn't know how to turn off. Like I didn't know how. That was probably the first time where I struggled with how to perform and take care of my body, and not without the fear. Like just and the noises. And this was the very early time of like chat rooms and forums and. So people started talking about, and the rent heads were really crazy. And so
talk about rent heads.
They would, the board and the fans, and that was my first real exposure to people talking about like the gossip culture around a show and me being part of that gossip culture. And I think I was away from my family.
You were very young too.
And I just, it was, I admit that I didn't have the emotional strength to handle the noise, like those negative noises.
I think there are different kinds of tools, and we haven't yet learned how to. There are different kinds of tools that you need to manage them, getting to the point where you know what the boundaries are, like saying whatever these people say is not my concern, it's not my responsibility.
Yeah, I can do that now.
We can all do that now, but I think in the early 90s when the internet started and you have IRC in chat rooms and stuff like that, it was different. We didn't know how to, and even just like the
these aren't critics. These are just your audience
These are just people going yaga yaga yaga. And right now, politically, we're dealing with like trying to understand what that sort of gossip culture is happening. It does with trolls on Twitter and Facebook and all of that.
Everyone has an opinion and has access to
and no accountability, right? It's not like they're saying who they are. They're not face to face with you. You can't really respond. So I just think it's amazing. You were like at that age. I didn't know what I was doing.
Plus in that show, because everyone is young. You didn't have any mentors. You couldn't have any mentors.
No.
Because they were all going through what you were going through.
Yeah, and what was even more difficult, Jen, can you hear me?
Yep.
So, do you remember the phone call when I called you crying and I was like, I don't understand why people don't take the job as seriously as I do. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you were like, it was like a wake-up call. And I asked you, I have a choice to either punch my card like everyone else, and then I'll get along and I'll have more friends, and I'll be able to make, have fun on stage, and we'll all just like play, or I have the solitary journey of being an artist who sings those words with conviction every day, who takes care of my body responsibly, and those were my options. And Jen was like, "It's a lonely road. like
no matzo balls for you."
Exactly. Like there's the other one wouldn't fulfill me. It would have been more fun, and it would have given me more friends, and it would have made me feel less like alone in that journey. But I know that every time I sang those words, I was singing Jonathan Larson's words, who was saying, "Live your frickin' life live it out loud." And he was no longer with us.
Then he died.
And I was like, you know what? When I find the truth in the work, even if it's a more solitary thing, and it might, people might laugh at like you take it way too seriously, but I feel that was the power of Rent. He wrote those words to change people's lives and to make them not feel alone in the world.
Yeah, and it worked for a lot of people. Yeah. It did. Oh, wow, what an amazing story.
Well, this is the thing. I feel like because you three incredible women have such a huge broad range of experience in terms of the kind of projects you've been involved with. It's Broadway or producing your own records or at TV and producing film, producing TV, and just we could go on for it.
But you know what? We haven't talked about your work with giving it back with youth, because that's a huge part of what you guys do as well. So, like, how did it get started that you started working with Indigenous youth?
Well, I think it actually feeds into what Tamara was just talking about with New York. A lot happened for me when I left the business sort of and moved in with my sister and stayed on her couch. That 10 months that I was there was full of despair and trying to figure out and receive messages around what I was going to do, because I no longer wanted to support non-Indigenous people telling our stories. That was something that was really bothering me about going on all of these auditions. I was constantly losing auditions to non-Native girls, playing Native roles, and I felt really like at the end of my career, like I just didn't want to do this anymore. So New York was a very important time for me. And I started to really understand the power of manifestation and really thinking about what I wanted. And I came to realize that if I was really going to make a difference, if I didn't want to be that person who sat on the couch and was angry about everything all the time, about everything I'm watching and everything I'm consuming, then I had to be the one to change that. So I started to really shift my perspective, and it was during that time that began to happen. And I guess doors started to open up for me. I got called to host the National Aboriginal Achievement Award. That's where I met Laura Milliken, who was an associate producer on that show. I came back to New York. Sarah Polley called me to come back to Toronto to do her short film, where I was playing just a regular role. So there were all these things, and then I got the call for Riverdale. She went into a coma as a white girl, and she's gonna wake up as you. So there was like all of these things being laid out that said, you know what, your path is being laid out for you, and you have to take all of these opportunities and create something of your own imagination. So I went back home, did Riverdale, worked with Sarah Polley, met Laura Milliken, and at that time, we opened Big Soul Productions on Riverdale. I spent my lunches with Melissa DeMarco, who had her own show. She taught me how to create a show with no money. Me and Laura created The Seventh Generation, which became the first Indigenous television series about, youth role models at the same time as APTN was launching. Mm-hmm. I was able to push my career forward as a non-ethnic specific character. So the universe sort of opened up as soon as I made the choice to not follow the path that I was on prior to New York. So it all kind of happened in 1999. everything shifted for me.
And then the natural thing is when you're in that place is to share it, because it's that whole thing of when you focus on manifesting your own vision and creating your own stories, you have to build a community. It's a part of to bring it forward. So
it's interesting.
It was for me. It was about being a part of a new vision for Indigenous storytelling. Yeah. And there were a lot of people who had been doing it for a long time, and I wanted to use whatever expertise I had at that point to, take a step back. Even though I still, was an actor, I still acted and auditioned. My real focus was I was burning the midnight oil, doing 18. Anyone who starts a company knows, you're literally working 18 hours a day just, with no pay for years just to build it. And we built it, and we put everything we had into that company and into the shows that we did, and then to Mocassin Flats and so on. And I haven't really stopped.
At that time, though, Jen, you also did, when you created Mocassin Flats, it was written with the kids in that community. Yeah,
so that idea was basically came out of this need to train youth. We were really aware that, I had this deep understanding because I was traveling the country and the state for years. From dancing outside, I was traveling to communities all over the place, signing autographs. And by the second or third time, I realized, I don't want to go to a community and sign autographs. I want to go to a community and train kids. So I started training youth in not in film and television, but performance and dance and music and, goal setting and all that stuff for years and years. So by the time I met Laura, we sort of incorporated this training mechanism into teaching kids in communities how to write, direct, produce. We would bring mentors in, and Mocassin Flats, the TV series, came out of a training program in North Central Regina that kids came together. We wrote a movie together, and it got into Sundance. All the kids came down. We had 3 sold-out screenings, and then it became a TV series. So yeah, it was all from a training initiative.
Earlier on in this discussion, you guys mentioned Judy Marshak, and I feel like the impact that she had on you guys in terms of making you believe it was possible is what you have all individually done for so many young artists, and it's it's like there's the skills, but the first thing is the belief that you can create a story, that you have the capacity, and that your story matters.
Yeah.
Somebody who says to you, you matter, your story matters, has such a profound impact. And you can never, once someone gives you that gift when you're a young artist, no one can ever take that away. That's the amazing thing. No one can ever take it away.
It becomes a core of your being.
Yeah.
How did Tamara and Sarah? How did you get involved with this youth aspect of it?
Well, it's similar. It's the part that Jen mentioned about the autographing. Like in the early years, when the res was very popular, when Dance Me Outside was popular, they would fly us into communities. So we were like native celebrities. And we were teenagers, so it was like, there was a youth population that was one of the biggest growing, like fastest growing demographics in Canada, was this native youth population. You guys are role models, so there was already, for these youth conferences or youth empowerment programs, they would bring us in, and Jen, as Jen said, it was just to sign autographs, and it was like, this is ridiculous. We can offer so much more. And maybe we just came from performing arts background, so we knew how to teach a theater class, a dance class. Sarah and I were still dancing at the time. And so we very early on were like, we could do hip hop. And there was hip hop culture was massive on the res. And so we knew that if we just did a fun little 2-day workshop, so we started offering that. Then there was like, more skill-based workshops of this is how you get into the business. So it was like industry workshops, but it was like it was endless. All the things that you could do in a one day in a community to give them skills or just pump them up, and just empower them. Many times, and because I'm a singer also, I would go in with my hand drum, I do singing workshops. It was like, what are all the things? You just look at what you have. Right?
Someone will get in touch with you and they'll be like, what kind of workshops can we do? And I'm like, I used to make jewelry. I was like, jewelry making, dream catchers, singing, hip hop, we could do film, we could do audition technique. And there's like a list, because I think what the disconnect is that there aren't these opportunities in those communities. So we are trained. We had the privilege to be trained in all of these art forms, and it's about bringing that experience, so that if they are inspired, they can decide that they want to continue their journey and their training, because there really isn't that infrastructure there for many of them. And we were like this access point to say, what can we give you? What can we show you? Like, let us inspire you to do whatever you feel, whatever you're connecting to. And I mean, I remember one of the first times Tamara and I went, was it Escazoni? Was it in Nova Scotia to the Mi'kmaq?
Yeah.
These kids showed up, they didn't want to talk with their, their hoodies over their mouths and their hands in their mouths. They were so shy. And I remember it was the first time and I was like, whoa, there was like 30 of them. And they're just, it was in Chisasiqui in northern Quebec. So many of them spoke Cree. So some of them didn't even speak English, which was so incredible to see that like they had their language, which was just something I had never experienced before. So we're communicating this like through dance and like through movement. And by the end of the week, when we did the show for the community, they just kept asking us to repeat the song, and they'd go back on the stage and they just wanted to do the dance over and over and over again. And we were just like,
and all the parents, we had to do 2 versions of the show because there like so many people
wanted to see it.
And like that's magic. So when we talk about that, like that for me, that's such a driver. Like we can accomplish so much when we get involved in our community.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah. And it's not just, remote communities were kind of had the most focus because there was funds available for youth programming. And then later on we start, I think with Mocassin Flats, where it was inner city Regina, like that, the Native community there. And then even in Toronto, like we have a massive Indigenous population here. and so many other places. So, from Native Women's Resource Center to Native Child and Family Services, there were so many places. I think I did after-school hip-hop classes there, 10 years ago. Like, it was anywhere that you could serve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was, it's not always met. Sometimes you go to a youth conference and there's 10 kids there, and you do the same thing that you do with a little roll with 10 lines. You make it the most important youth workshop you've ever done in your life. Yeah.
Wow. And you continue to do this?
Yeah.
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 And you do it all three together all the time?
Sometimes we do it all three together.
Tamara and I just went back to where our Mother's Reserve is. That was the most recent one we did in Regina and Muscatine. So we got to actually go home, like, to where
all of
where
our
mother's
family
family
is,
and that was really incredible, because I think that was the first time I'd been there too. I'd been there before, but to actually like work in the community, that was pretty awesome.
Were there relatives there?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, just a whole bunch of people,
cousins, aunties, uncles. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and there's a very specific look of or like, I guess whatever my mother's gene is, it's a strong gene.
Yes.
And so you're just looking around looking at people that look just like your mom.
Yeah.
She has it's a Soto gene. It's a pretty strong bones, but it's weird. It's freaky because it's like walking around in a land where everybody looks like
everybody's cousin.
yes, which is very cool. Yeah. You don't get that here.
No. I felt that my father's family's from based on this little tiny island off of Mocassin, and most of them don't live there anymore. But I visited there when in my 20s, and you could walk around it. You could walk around it in a day. Basically, my family took me there to make sure I wouldn't get into trouble. It was essentially a family kidnapping. Right. You stay here. You're in Korea. But everybody was named Yoon, and everybody was a cousin.
Oh,
and it was...
It's an amazing feeling, right?
It's weird. It's weird, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about projects that you're working on now, or upcoming, or dream, or just like into the future.
What are you looking forward to?
Future being now, because we make things now for the future.
Awesome.
For the next 5 or 10 years.
This is for the next 10 years. So I wrote a script. I haven't written the script totally. I'm halfway through the script, but I had a project that I pitched to Canada Council. So I got a screenwriting grant.
Nice.
Which is like the only place you can get a screenwriting grant is Canada Council. Unless anybody else knows of any other places, you can tell me. But where
Toronto Arts Council doesn't do it?
No, I don't think
not this substantial. It's a nice grant that doesn't. You don't have to do anything but write.
That's perfect.
Yes, and so that's for my first feature. So I'm halfway through that.
Excellent.
So that's my writing. I write a show with Jen called Future History. So we're on season 2. We finished season 2. Season 2 is airing right now on APTN. That was, my sister gave me my first professional writing gig. I do think I now have to join the Writers Guild.
Good.
So she won't be able to
go
get
there
me
and,
for as cheap anymore, unfortunately.
I think we're negotiating right over the podcast right there.
But it was my first, that's been the biggest kind of birth of mine. In the last year was kind of finding my writer.
Nice.
And seeing the product on TV has been really exciting. And then Coroner, we're doing season 2 of Coroner.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yay.
So we start that this summer.
Exciting.
And I love that show. And it's not just I love that show. It is the most pleasurable experience from pickup to drop off. From every moment
great.
In between is it's just such a positive, supportive, beautiful. It's not like anything I've ever experienced.
Congratulations.
It might have to do with Morwen Brebner and Adrian Mitchell and the band of women who run that show and write the show and direct the show. It's just, it's a real loving environment, and I get to be funny. I play a funny, crazy, funny, let's say
it's
funny.
Better than, being funny is a nice change from
being
dead.
Yeah,
right?
Being funny is
There's
better
a lot
than
of dead people.
But
on
I
Coroner.
always have been go towards drama. So I cry a lot, I yell a lot, I'm tortured. It's a lot of traumatic work. So this is so fun. And
I could
you're just like buzzing on joy. There's some heavy stuff, but you're the thing that brings joy to the story.
Which is ironic considering it's coroner.
I know.
Someone else can be dead. You can be funny.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly. So
For once.
that's exactly. I'm loving it.
Sarah?
Oh, I'll go. I'm really excited. I'm developing a lot of projects, which is just, I find so joyous. I have a TV series in development and a feature film, and also really focusing on finding a new way to create and collaborate. We had an awesome reading. Tamara was there yesterday. This beautiful play that I'm trying to adapt, and it was such an amazing experience because we had the actors there, and I just love this idea of like, I've always felt disconnected as an actor. You get your lines, you get the script, and then you have to like deal with problems on the day or like before you're shooting a scene. And I'd love to learn how to create an environment where none of those things have to happen on the day, where we can all deal with it ahead of time so that everyone can come to work in an environment where everybody feels confident and safe, and they can talk to the producers and they can talk to the writers, and they don't feel like there's this hierarchy and this power dynamic happening. So I'm really interested in investigating that with all these projects, and enjoying producing and writing and also just collaborating. There's so many. It is a good time right now for Indigenous creators, and I just want to make sure that to be part of that support system, so that we can all be on the same page moving forward. Because I think that when we all talk and we all communicate, we create better work, and we all create better work with all the right people and the right allies. So I'm really excited. There's a really exciting movement happening around content creation, and I think the next 5-10 years for us is just going to be like groundbreaking and really inspiring.
It's blossoming, and the tree's been growing, and like all these beautiful flowers and stuff, but everything. I think we're getting so close.
Positive and optimistic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Jennifer, are you going to take over a network? Because I was thinking kind of like in the sort of model, Oprah model or something. That would be,
I really want to.
I'm behind you, girl. I'm like I will do whatever I can to say Jennifer Podemski should be running a network.
Well, the other thing is everyone wants Jennifer to run a network because she is the #1 employer of most of her friends and family members. So we know that if she's on top,
we're on top.
We're all being fed. We're all being paid.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, I definitely like the idea. I don't know that I want to run a network, but I definitely like the Shonda Rhimes model where, I want
an
to
empire.
Be able to have a lot of different projects that employ a lot of different people, because I see a lot of really talented unemployed people, and that pisses me off.
There's one in the room here.
Just one?
Just one. My goodness, this has been tremendous being in the room with such dynamic and positive women, and it's. I take my yarmulke off to you.
Thank you.
Do we have time for a quick round with what's in your actors?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've been asking people like, what do you take to set? What is something that you have to take to set? Like I take a yoga mat all the time. I have a bag full of like weird creams and stuff like that.
Yes.
Stuff. But I'm just wondering. Like, we've had different answers. Like Jane Eastwood brings her drawing stuff, and there are other people who.
Wendy Cruson brings everything with her. Everything she might need. Yeah. Oh yeah. Fully equipped.
I have my potions, like the potions, the smells, the stuff to.
Do you bring your own diffuser?
Oh no, I don't. But usually, like, I should do that.
I have a diffuser in my kitchen.
Yeah.
They're only like, you buy 2 online like for $30 and give one to your sister.
I'm usually doused in my own stink of like essential oils that I wonder if I'd even notice a diffuser. But yeah,
you are a walking diffuser.
So that's essential, and just all the remedies, right? Like just because you're just keeping healthy through those schedules. So I always have, I call it like my little potion kit.
Yeah.
Music, essential, and I carry pictures. I have a picture. Like I always will bring. If my son drew something, I will. It's like just a way to
put it on the
yeah,
wall. Yeah,
put it on the wall.
Yeah,
Make it feel like if this was my office, let's call this my office. There's a picture of
your office with a toilet in it.
An office with a toilet, and a picture of what was meant to be a dinosaur. Girl.
I definitely take my rescue remedy, my calming rescue remedy. I have crazy anxiety on set. Oh. So my meditation app, the Calm app, where I have to just like, sometimes I don't even listen to the thing. I just listen to the music and I just try and go into another dimension. Yeah. I have like a lot of nerves on set. It's funny because it's all the leading up to, and then when I'm there and I'm in the scene, it's like it doesn't even exist. But I have like on the drive, I have to drive myself to set because I'm like really, I have a lot of anxiety about
it's
it.
Really
Because you like
common.
to be nervous in the car? Is that
No,
what it is?
because I can't be with others in the car because I can't have other energy around me. It's like it's not, and I feel bad because sometimes I feel like I have to call call the transport people. I'm like, nobody did anything. I need to have that space in the morning. If you're waking up at 5 a.m., like the last thing you want is like people being like, rah, 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 rah. And you're just like, I need to just take myself. So that for me, it's like anything that'll calm my system. Because for me, I love this industry and I love doing what I do, but it gives me a lot of anxiety.
No, I me too. Someone was telling me about kava. I haven't tried it yet.
Kava.
Yeah. Does that you've never?
Never.
No.
Oh, well,
I'm looking it up.
Look it up. Yeah. He says it's very subtle.
Yeah.
My son puts his headphones on and comes down and just watches his videos while he's having breakfast. There's no communication. There's no interaction. And I'm like, I just made you breakfast. Is that something? Can we have a little? Okay. No, it's okay. That's fine. I'll sit here alone. Look at you eat.
In the zone.
Enjoy your waffles.
What's in your actor's kit, Jennifer? That you have to take to set when you're
It's funny because so if I'm going, so there's two kinds of sets. There's set like when you're going away and shooting. So like, what do you take with you away?
Yeah.
I would take a bunch of things. Like I would take anything that's like for my health and well-being, which there's a lot of stuff when I'm dealing with like Lyme disease stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's like kids paintings, like Tamara said, pictures, and of course diffusers and candles and those kinds of things because most hotel rooms are pretty gross. And other than that, I think where I usually get screwed up, even as a professional who's been doing this for so long, is what do you take to set after you've already been to your trailer? So you take like your stuff to the trailer, but then you're going to be stuck on set. So, what do you take to set? So I thought that was the question. Oh. In that case, I would say lip balm always, gum, headphones, a charger, and your phone.
And a book and something to read.
I see.
I read from my phone.
So do I.
Like I love books, but I don't find them. I don't like reading them on set. I like reading. Yeah. I'm very into articles. I like reading articles.
See,
so that's where I like having my phone.
The only thing on top of what you would take, like your from trailer to set that I take that you don't take actually, is a yoga mat, because then you can throw it down, and because sometimes you just want to lie down and you can't lie down because your costume's going to get dirty. And yeah, you have cast chairs.
That's a great idea.
But a yoga mat, I also throw it on the bed on the couch on the trailer, because I had once. If anybody's been listening to previous podcasts, but once I got bed bugs from a trailer.
No, you didn't.
I did. But I think that
bed
was
bugs
at
don't
that.
do yoga.
I think that was at a time when bed
yoga.
bugs were coming back and nobody had been treating it. It was that comeback thing. But I think now a lot of like the hotels and stuff are treating for that.
Oh my gosh, I'm bringing a mattress cover.
Yeah.
Say that.
No.
It's terrible.
Well, you should be fine. I haven't had any encounters with it since. But that yoga mat is nice.
You gotta have to have like a set bag, because also you need depending on your character, you need a pair of shoes. I'm not gonna walk around in high heels or like uncomfortable shoes all day if I'm only gonna be in two scenes.
Yeah, though usually wardrobe will provide them, and if you ask, they'll go get it for you if you need comfy slippers and also lip balm. Like hair makeup will usually do that.
Jen likes her moccasins. She's very particular about what she wears.
Yeah.
I like my moccasins. I like my specific stuff. I don't want anyone touching my stuff.
Don't give me your Uggs that I know someone else has worn. I know,
So,
that's what they do.
I have one thing to share with you. one of the things I take to set, and I'll have in my dressing room or trailer, is this like little massager. It's got 4 balls. Like it's $60 to $80 online, and you plug it, and you can just put it in the back of a chair. Or you can put it on your leg, and it's just like, it's so awesome. It's you know, it's not that expensive. And anyway, I took it to the hair and makeup room last week. It was the first week of shooting for Kim's, and the hair and makeup people went crazy. And by the end of the day,
They all got one.
they've already ordered them.
They were like
The key hair artist did a bulk order of like 4 of them.
Can you feel it through the
Amazing.
yoga mat?
It's you don't. The yoga mat's not
It's a
involved,
joke.
David. Yes.
I
Anyway.
think what's funny for people that aren't in the industry is the idea that like it is such a stressful environment. Even if you can zen out or do, like, you always need those toys and those tools to kind of keep you calm in the madness of it. And I think that's always surprising for people that don't know what life is like on set, because they're like, oh, you guys are actors, you're so sensitive. It's like, this is an intense environment that's happening around us.
Yeah, and you have to be ready right then.
Yes.
Expectations
Yeah.
are very
Yes.
high
Yes.
for the moment
Yes.
that you actually arrive and have to deliver your goods.
Yeah.
And you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And time is money, and it's so that pressure is like, oh no, it's all glamour and it's all, you know, fans and everything. No, it's like that moment.
It's really hard,
and it's
guys.
on, you know,
A bunch of actors with
right.
all of their toys
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to remain calm.
I think that's a really great place to wrap this up.
That's right.
I'm so grateful that we had this chance to get together.
It was
so
It was so much fun.
Thank you.
I've just redone my patio. It's almost finished, and you got to come over, okay?
happily.
Okay.
Congee.
Yeah.
For some kunji.
Yeah. For some
Congee.
congee and maybe a little red wine.
Yes.
Oh, nice,
right.
nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Really much. It was so good to be
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
sister.
everyone.
Bye.
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 Well, now I know what it's like growing up in the Podemski household. That was phenomenal, and what careers they have and continue to have. The song from today's show is called Let Go, and it's by Tamara Podemski and Karen Kozowski. Thanks for listening. I'm David Gale. ACTRA Spotlight is produced by Cass Enright and recorded in ACTRA's Gordon Pinson studio. You can get Spotlight on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to like us and share us, and keep watching Canadian.
If I